Good morning. I don't think this is going to come out how I need it to, but I think I just have to give it a go because the reason I started my doing the YouTube is because I want to speak to something that I feel like I'm not ready to put onto my Facebook page because a lot of my family are on there, and extended family. So yeah, so I created the YouTube because I have been I've been actively doing shadow work, and of course it brought up a lot, but it actually brought up a memory that I had clearly stomped down. So I will sort of start at where I thought the beginning was. So when I was 23, before that I had a lot of health issues, especially around headaches, severe headaches, and other weird stuff. And then Mum noticed that I wasn't hearing very well, and she suggested that I went and see a doctor about getting my ear syringed. And then that doctor was like, there's nothing in there, but you have a hearing issue. So he sent me to a hearing specialist who sent me for an MRI, and there was I think at the time it was a 3.6 millimeter, so acoustic neuroma, which is a benign brain tumor, which sort of grows somewhere in your ear. But at that point mine was big enough that my brain stem had, like, it was curling the brain stem, it was growing into it. And it had dissolved my eardrum at that point, but somehow my facial nerve in that wasn't affected at the time. So 6 weeks after they found it, I was able, because I had full cover insurance. That's a whole other story, actually, a very clever spirit one. I had insurance, so I was able to go have surgery for this. In that 6 weeks, so what's not normal? They're very slow growing tumors. Mine was not, and it was close to 4 centimeters. It grew another 4 millimeters, which is little. Okay, I'm not trying to make out that, but for this particular tumor, it was fast growing. So I was close to 4 centimeters by the time they removed it. Now, it was a 14-hour surgery. It was a doozy. And when I went under, they need to bring you out to check your pupils and stuff, I guess. But what happened was, and this is where the trigger started. So this is where it all started. They woke me up, and I was absolutely tripping, like, for real. So they've woken me up, and I feel like I'm about to get raped, or somebody's about to come and get me. And I yoink all the shit out of my arms and that, and I start going absolutely crazy. And I just remember the fear and the feeling like I was about to be sexually assaulted. And next minute I think they shoved something in my arm and put me back to sleep. Thank goodness. So and that was at 23. So went through that, facial paralysis, like I said, completely deaf in this ear, eye issues. There's all the stuff. It was a long time ago. Anyway, so from then on, I now have a completely different life to the one that I lived. And I did my absolute best. You know what I mean? I did not hide from the world. I worked in health shops, have had 2 kids, got married, all that stuff. But there was always this sense of shame, deep shame, and I was so embarrassed about the way that I looked. And I carried that through. And then when my marriage ended, when around, it was about 10 years ago now, I really started my healing journey. Now, I've always been a bit odd. I've studied natural therapies. I worked in health shops, like alternative stuff is my deal, but I really took it forwards, and I did my Reiki, and I joined women's circles, and I started doing healing at festivals and stuff. And then I did my Romi Romi and my Miri Miri accreditation. That's another beautiful story. So I did a lot of stuff, and then I stepped into shadow work. And as I've been doing these weekly classes, the shadows really started coming up, and I started to dissect the shame thing. Well, it turns, and it was through a dream. No, sorry, wasn't. You know when you're not sure if you're asleep or you're awake, and they're meditative. So I've woken up, and I've remembered something as a kid. Now, my sister was very brave, and when she was 5 years old, told a school teacher. And all I remember is the police at our house and mum and dad out the back, and they just looked absolutely devastated. I'll never forget their body language. It was just slumped, and they looked broken. And it was the police officers saying, hey, Holly's, a teacher's come forward. Holly's been sexually abused by our Nana's husband, so our step papa. Yeah, and I'll just remember that. I think that's the moment everything kind of kicked in for me, in the sense of repressing and suppression, because I was asked if it happened to me, and look, I it wasn't that I lied. It was just Holly was the one who spoke out, so I just felt like this was her story, not my story, if that makes sense. Yeah, so years would go by, but I realized the shame I felt was not around the surgery triggered a repressed memory that I had, which was being sexually abused by this disgusting man. And other stuff happened in regards to that, with me and my sister. Yeah, so that's where the shame came from, but the surgery is what triggered it and brought it back up. So I just kept, every story I had just kept going back to the surgery I had, and then it came from there. It didn't. It was further than that. It was deeper than that. It was from my childhood. And isn't it insane when I logically now I know, first of all, why would I carry shame for a medical thing, for something I have no control over, right? And then take that back even further. Why would I carry shame for something that I had no control over as a child that was done to me? You know, that innocence, my sexual innocence, was taken from me. But somehow we internalize this stuff, and we make it, yeah, it becomes really big and deep and gross. And then I thought everybody hated me. You know, that was part of my shadow, was I thought people hated me, and I have beautiful people in my life, really good friends, and I thought, well, if they don't hate me now, they will learn to hate me. And that's because I had this deep, dark, gross shadow thing that I had, but I couldn't speak to it at the time, because I didn't know until I did the shadow work what it actually was. And it was because I hated that part of me that existed, and again, no fault of my own. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of work on letting that go. I think the other video will show I've made my my bush, which I put all my bits and pieces on to release. But yeah, so that is that's the story. I look, my life's been pretty. I had another 3 more of those tumors grew back. So you know that wasn't, that first surgery wasn't the end of that story, but it's the end of what I will be talking about now, and what that what that brought up, so to speak. So I think I've covered that. So this is why I'm doing this. I want to share all the shadow stuff so that I can, heal from that and not have it hold me anymore. I want to integrate it and love it, which I did, because when I realized that that little girl had been screaming and I had a 7-year-old in the background, you know, I'd been protecting her by not going there, but she was also screaming to be heard. So yeah, integrating her was beautiful, just being able to heal that part of me. And I know I've got a lot more healing to do, but I'm here for it. So yeah.